Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be doing a little bit of a scripting tutorial, which is something that a couple people have wanted me to do, so I'm going to do it. So as you know, I script on Roblox, so I'm going to go through some of the basics to the best of my ability. So first we're going to create a script, so you can put your script anywhere. So there's three different types of scripts. There's the normal script, which runs on the server, it runs everywhere. There's a local script, which only runs for you. It only runs for the player. So if you change a property, it would only show for you and not everybody else. And then there's a module script, which I'll get into in a later video. But for now, we're just going to start off with the normal script. So you can put a script, really, ideally I'd recommend putting them in either workspace or for organization in server script service. So I'm going to create one in server script service here. I'm going to make a script. Okay, so let's get into some of the basic functions. So I'd recommend that you open up the Explore tab and the Properties tab and the Output tab by going up to View. You got Explore Properties and then Output. I'd recommend that you open those. So I'm going to start off with a basic function in a script, which is going to be the print function. Now, when you write out a function, it's important that you have these brackets afterwards. I'll get into that in a bit. But our print function, ideally, what it does is whatever you put in it, it will appear in the output down here. So in quotations, I'm just going to put in, this is my print in here. So now when I launch the game, down here in the output window, it should say, this is my print. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on play here, which will launch the game. And as you can see, it says, this is my print. Now there's other things that you can do with this print function. So let's say I want to print out an equation. Let's say I want to print out 2 plus 5. I launch the game, and it says 7. So 2 plus 5 is 7. So you can print out whatever. So let's print out a property. Let's get the color of this base plate. So I'm going to change the color. Let's change it to, let's do this red color. Actually, no, let's do this color. So to print out the color of the base plate, we're going to first type game. So the game is anything in this Explorer here. This is game. So the base plate is in workspace right here. So we're going to do dot workspace and then dot base plate. Now that references to our base plate, but we want to print out the color. So we're going to do dot brick color. So now when we launch the game, as you can see, it says bright red. So you can do a lot of things with this. Now, let's say I want, when the game starts, to change the color of the base plate when we spawn in, or change the material. So what I'm going to do is, well, we're going to type out our path to it. So game.workspace.baseplate. Alright, so I want to change the brick color. So we're going to do dot brick color equals brick color dot new. And then we're going to have our brackets. And then in quotations, let's do the color. So let's do like a bit of a green color. I think dark green sounds good. So now when we start the game, our base plate should be green. Yep, it's green. Let's say I want to change the material to it and make it grass. So if I drop a line by hitting enter, we can do game.workspace.baseplate. This time we're going to change the material. And I want to change it to grass. So we're going to do that. We're going to do equals enum.material.grass. Now when we join, our base plate should be green and grass. Like that. Now, let's say you don't want to type out game.workspace.baseplate every time? Well, let's create a variable. Variables are very handy in storing various types of data. They can store numbers, they can store whatever. So to create a variable, you're going to type local and then the name of the variable. So let's just call it my base, like that. And then your equals, and then the equals, whatever comes after the equals is the data that's going to be stored in the variable. So I want it to do game.workspace.baseplate. So now, instead of typing this out every time, we could just say my base instead of game.workspace.baseplate. So we have a variable, so my base.brickcolor, and my base is equal to game.workspace.baseplate. So now when we join, it should still work. There you go. Now I'm going to show you how to create functions. So functions are very useful. So to create a function, what you're first going to do is type out function, space, and then type out the name of the function. So I'm going to say change base. And then it's important that you do the brackets. And then hit enter. And then anything in between this and the end is going to fire in the function. So let's say I want my base color to change. Like that. Now, we created our function. My base, it'll change the base color as we just saw. So when scripts run, I mean, it goes from the lines down. So it runs this, then it runs this. So we have it in our function, but you may notice that when we join, our base will not change color. It's still gray. That's because we have to call the function. So to call the function, all you gotta do is to change base. Like that, the brackets. So we called the function at the bottom of our script, so now when we start the game, our base is green now. Now, the reason why functions are useful is because you can use multiple different ways to, change the base. Now, if you're wondering about these curly brackets, these are called parameters. Now, I'm going to show you a bit of how they work. So I'm going to type a parameter. I'm going to type base. Now, instead of base, I'm just going to type this. So our parameter is base. So we're going to use our parameter instead of my base. We're going to use our parameter, which is base. So base.brickcolor, it will change the brick color. Now you're probably wondering, how will this change the color of our base plate specifically? You may notice that when we join, nothing's going to happen and we actually get an error. Well, we need to reference the base. So when we call the function in our parameter, we're just going to do my base, which is our variable that we created, which is equal to game.workspace.baseplate. So typing my base in here is the same thing as typing game.workspace.baseplate. So now it works. So another thing you can do is, let's just say I have a part here. Let's just say it's a random size, and let's say it's anchored. Whoops. Let's just say it's anchored. So we have a part right here. Instead of using my base, let's actually do game.workspace.part. And that is this part right here. As you can see, now it's green and has grass. Because in the script, instead of referring to the base plate with our parameter, we referred to the part. So now the part's green. Now, I'm going to show you one more thing, which is how I find these functions useful. So I'm actually going to get rid of this parameter, and I'm just going to change this back to my base. And I'm going to get rid of this. Now, calling functions, you can call them multiple different ways. So let's say that when I touch this part, let's actually make it float a little bit here. Let's say that when I touch this part, I want the base plate to change color. Well, this function, what it does is, well, it changes color and it changes material. So instead of it changing when I spawn in, I want it so that when I jump and touch this block, then it will change the material. So we're going to make it call this function when that happens. So first, we need to simply just, well, reference our part that we created. So game.workspace.part. Now, we want to do .touched. Now, .touched is a function that calls when you touch the part. So when it gets touched, it's going to connect to this function. So this part right here references that part right here. This part, you can see it's called part. Then when it's touched, it's going to connect and then run this function. So when we join the game, you see our base plate's normal, but when we jump and touch this, it changes to our green. So yeah, that's just a little bit of basic scripting. I'll show you how to do some more advanced scripting in a future video. I know this video was a little, you know, kind of lame in terms of scripting. It's the absolute basics. But I hope this helped, and good luck when it comes to scripting.